Folks, you're watching Pot TV. I'm Jack Layton, leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada. And I'd like to invite you to support our party, which is in favor of modernizing our marijuana laws and creating a legal environment in which people can enjoy their marijuana in the peace and quiet of their own home or in a cafe without having to worry about being criminalized. Our website, ndp.ca, would welcome you. Come on down and see us. Join the party. Become part of the movement.
Position on marijuana, and we have a number of questions to ask Mr. Layton, and welcome to Pot TV.
Good to be here.
So, Mr. Layton, do you think anybody should go to jail for having anything to do with marijuana, whether it's selling, I guess, buying, or growing, or any of those things?
No, I don't.
That's fabulous. Now, that's, by the way, we went over your QV of comments and quotes about marijuana legalization, and we were stunned because we're a group of millions of Canadians who use marijuana, and we're looking for someone. I wouldn't want to use the term savior, but we're looking for someone like yourself, and exclusively yourself right now, who is prominent in Canadian politics and who has a view to legalize. So why don't you just expand on your party's position and how you feel about marijuana yourself?
Well, maybe we'll start with my personal views, and then we can talk about the party's position. I had the opportunity to grow up in the 60s, and in fact, my dad's best friend in the Army was a guy named Jerry Layton, who went on to be appointed by Pierre Trudeau to do a Royal Commission study in the early 70s on the whole question of marijuana. And he concluded at that point, 30 years ago, this is longer than some of your viewers may actually have been alive on the planet, if I may be so bold as to say. And he recommended at that stage decriminalization of marijuana. This was a very progressive position. It would have put Canada, I think, in a lead position around the transformation of the understanding of marijuana and people's use of marijuana, etc., and set us off on a different track from this concept of a war mentality, which has simply criminalized an awful lot of people who never should have been criminalized. And look, there's millions of Canadians who, at one point or another, either regularly or from time to time, have tried or are using marijuana. And these folks don't consider themselves criminals, nor do their friends and neighbors or family members. And yet we have a legal structure which suggests that they are. Now, then that takes us to the question of decriminalization versus legalization. And to me, decriminalization, or what's proposed in current laws here in Canada that are being considered, a sort of partial decriminalization of a certain fairly narrow situation. In other words, if you happen to be in possession, although it's not clear how legally you could ever come into the possession. I guess it would just materialize in your hand one day, but then you'd have to probably charge the higher powers that put it there with some sort of offense. But the proposal is that if you possess some marijuana under a certain quantity, then you wouldn't have a criminal record. You'd still be fined. But then coming into the possession of the marijuana would still be a criminal offense.
What is the New Democratic Party's proposal in this regard? How does the party see the future for marijuana legislation?
Well, we'd like to see it to be the sort of legislation that essentially allows people to consume marijuana, particularly that they might grow themselves, but ultimately as well some technique that would allow them to be able to purchase it safely, knowing what the quality is, knowing what's there, and have that all be a legal activity. And precisely the shape of that legislation we're still thinking through, and we're open to advice from people in the community who would have good suggestions about that. Libby Davies is
and we've got Mr. Layton's email and the party's membership policies right on the homepage here, so if you want to get involved and influence New Democratic Party policy in this regard, the address is right there. And I want to tell you we're giving you as many plugs as possible. And I guess that gets to our next question. What can we do to help make this happen? Decima research has shown that 40% of Canadians are fully in favor of fully legalized marijuana, and we don't have a political home really in Parliament that's advocating these beliefs on our behalf. We feel abandoned much of the time, And we're going to love, our audience I know will love what you're saying, and what I want to know is how can we make this happen? How can we increase the NDP's influence in Parliament in this regard? And I also want to talk about Libby Davies, who's carrying the ball for this in the committee, the Special Committee on Drugs. She's doing a fabulous job. I get emails from her all the time telling us what's going on in the committee, where they're going.
Yes.
She's been doing a terrific job, and she's overwhelmed as one of the few current NDP representatives from British Columbia, and she's doing a great job. She's overwhelmed, and she's been giving us reports. So how do we make this happen? How do the millions of Canadians who use marijuana, smoke marijuana, support marijuana, have an influence on getting the NDP elected and getting those policies brought to the forefront?
Well, the way that our party will have more seats and ultimately form a government in the country would be to have millions of people join our party, support our party in whatever way they see fit. And we try to make it fairly easy. People can drop by our website, ndp.ca, and sign up as a member, or perhaps to start with, just receive our newsletter every week. I put out a little newsletter of some of the things that we're up to, and that way you can stay in touch with Libby Davies and the work of the committee. But I think as people see our membership numbers rising and our support rising in polls, they're going to say, wait a minute, these folks actually have a shot at perhaps changing policy in the government, or even becoming the government down the road. And that's how you can accomplish political change. In addition, I think, frankly, programs such as yours, the various movements that have grown up, community groups, associations, this is very, very important as well. It's not just political parties. I don't want to downplay what we do, but I want to emphasize that people need to be involved in community organizations that are promoting a more reasonable approach to the whole issue of marijuana. And that helps to, as it were, till the soil for then the political parties to have a little bit more room to move. And lastly, vote. I have lots of friends who, over the years, have tended to say, "Oh, why bother voting? What's really the point?" It's there's a somewhat libertarian attitude that suggests that maybe if you vote, you somehow contaminate yourself in a certain and I think we're going to have to see if we can't break past that. And it is true that younger people, for example, who are not they're not raised in the context, and their life isn't in the context of the old friendly stranger mythology that many of our senior citizens have grown up with. And the seniors, they turn out to vote.
They do. 8 out of 10 apparently. 8 out of 10 people over 65 turn out to vote, and 1 out of 10 people 20 years old. One of the things, though, I think we want, for example, if we go to your website, is there a marijuana policy on the website? Especially since this is a pretty major discussion piece of the last half year or 2 years, and that's what our people will be looking for. They want to see validation. What our audience might be cynical about is the seriousness of your commitment,
right?
The sincerity of your commitment. Will we get lost in a lot of other social democratic ideology? Is what I think everybody here is looking for is an explicit statement, and then the kind of a commitment that we're going to mention this frequently. We're going to make that one of the hallmarks of an election, because what happens otherwise is we have the marijuana party running federally, which has no chance of getting elected, but is the conscience vote for all those people who feel they're not going to get represented.
Yes.
But we're quite happy to tell everyone, since I myself have run 9 times and would normally be organizing a lot of candidates here in British Columbia, we'd be more than happy, like we're not planning to run against Libby Davies, and we'd be more than happy to endorse all the NDP candidates if this was the kind of aggressive policy they were pursuing. So I think when people check out your website, we're a lot of activists who are anxious to get involved, anxious to put our energy, and I guess what we're looking for is what kind of energy can the NDP put towards this issue in the upcoming federal election. But another thing to do as well is to contrast you with the alternatives. We're going to see a new Conservative Party person as the leader of that party, and Paul Martin seems to be competing for much of the same turf. Do you see the next election as an opportunity for the NDP in that regard, and that there's probably one social democratic party in the election and 2 substantially right-wing parties? How do you review the current alignment of Canadian politics?
Well, it will, I think, open up real possibilities, and in fact, not just possibilities, necessities for people if they want to push back against the sort of corporate drift, the very right-wing point of view that we see from the emerging new alliance of the Conservatives and the Alliance Party on the one hand, and then Paul Martin as the head of the Liberals. He's really a very conservative leader for that party, and has been very soft on the whole question of the marijuana laws, even the rather inadequate legislation that's proposed.
Well, we think of him as hostile. We don't think of him as soft. We
Okay.
we detect an undercurrent of hostility to any liberalization of the marijuana laws.
I think you're probably right on there. In terms of the policy on our website, I became leader about 9 months ago, and we're going through a complete update of our policies for the next election, which will be completed very soon. And so we're going to have our website infused with our new policy.